Martin O'Neill sacked as Sunderland manager after Man United defeat from March 31st, 2013. Martin O'Neill parted company with Sunderland after only 16 months as manager. The Black Cats lost 1-0 to leaders Man United in Sunday's lunchtime kickoff that left them without a win in 8 games. It was also a result that left them perilously 1 point above the drop zone with 7 points remaining in the Premier League. The drop zone, or the danger zone. That's what I'd like to call it. The Bluey Chew Botchamania reference right there. The statement on the club website read, Sunderland AFC has announced that it's parted company with manager Martin O'Neill this evening. The club would like to place on record its thanks to Martin and wishes him well for the future. An announcement will be made in the coming days regarding a successor. Now, Martin O'Neill's Sunderland record was 66 games, won 21, drew 20, lost 25, with a win percentage of 31.8%. Now, today, April 1st, 2013, Paolo Di Canio has been appointed as the new Sunderland head coach on a 2.5-year deal. The Italian, who left Swindon in February, will take charge from Monday morning as he replaces Martin O'Neill, who was sacked on Saturday after the 1-0 defeat to Man United. He becomes Sunderland's 5th boss in a little more than 4 years, and the first chairman Ellis Short has chosen since Niall Quinn's departure as chairman. Short said, Paolo is hugely enthused by the challenge that lies ahead of him. He is passionate, driven and raring to get started. The sole focus for everyone for the next 7 games will be to ensure that we gain enough points to maintain our top flight status. I think that the chances of that are greatly increased with Paolo joining us. Bit of a disrespectful remark to Martin O'Neill, it must be said, but that's just my opinion. But Piara Power has said Paolo Di Canio must clarify his current political beliefs and distance himself from fascism, according to the Football Against Racism in Europe FAIR group. Di Canio was announced as the successor to sacked Sunderland boss Martin O'Neill on Sunday evening, and his arrival immediately provoked controversy. Former Foreign Secretary David Miliband swiftly resigned as Sunderland's vice chairman and non-executive director, citing the Italian's past political statements. The former Lazio striker has previously admitted to having fascist leanings, telling Italian news agency ANSA in 2005, I am a fascist, not a racist. Describing Di Canio's appointment as worrying, FAIR director Piara Power said, when there is a rise of intolerance and there is a coach in the Premier League, which is the most watched league globally, who hasn't clarified or wanted to renounce his fascist views during his time in the UK, it is a worrying time. Di Canio has the opportunity to clarify his views and let us know what his approach will be and how strongly held his strongly held views will influence how he will do his job. I think from our perspective, we would say we are seeing the rise of the far right and the intolerance and hatred that goes with that across Europe. Being a fascist is not a soft political label. Now that's interesting in itself. The players have to go out on the pitch and do the job. And if they don't do the job, I don't think the blame should solely rest at the manager's door. Now Martin O'Neill, it's not as if Martin O'Neill had lost the players or lost the dressing room, because against Man United, there were times where they actually played well. So it's not as if they were playing crap and he'd lost the dressing room. So it's a really weird one. Reading taking Adkins, very good move. But Sunderland taking on Paolo Di Canio is risky. And you know what? It's putting his fascist views aside. I know it's difficult to do, but putting the fascist views aside, the highest he's managed is League One. So that's a huge risk. And all the controversy that comes with him, there's controversial players as well. But at the end of the day, it's one of them. There's been a lot of speculation in terms of Paolo Di Canio's viewpoints and where he stands and all that. But at the end of the day, it's a case of it's a huge risk to throw Paolo Di Canio into a Premier League club. So I don't know, man. And also with his far right views, it's also a risk. It's also a risk because, oh my God, it's also a risk. It's also a risk because at the end of the day, that just will he be able to gain the support of certain players who don't hold those beliefs? And there were those allegations of last year. There were those allegations about potential him racially abusing a player. So it's one of them ones. They were only ever allegations, but no smoke without fire, as the saying goes. But I think it's a risk. Getting rid of a manager at this time of the season, I think, is moronic. But it's a risk taking on a manager who has not managed any higher than League One. So it's one of them ones. I mean, you never know. He might leave in a few months, like he did with Swindon. So you just never know these days.
I was just gonna jump on with the Martin O'Neill one. Like you, Liam, very shocked about his sacking, especially like we spoke last week, the week before with McDermott as well. And earlier on with Adkins as well. Sacking managers after the January transfer window just doesn't make sense. We said it last year when Terry Connor and shut up.
I knew where I was going to go.
He was put in place as manager. It's just ridiculous. And the worst thing about it, Martin O'Neill is a seasonal and very high regarded manager. He's not just someone who, most teams don't look upon as a credible manager. He's actually a credible manager.
Yeah.
And, whatever hard times he is having at Sunderland, you always had the feeling he was going to keep them up. But maybe that's the type of feeling Sunderland wanted to get away from, because they are in a bad position at the moment, and maybe they wanted to just shake things up. And by having someone like Paolo Di Canio in the fold, they know there isn't no smoke with fire with him, but at the end of the day, he's the type of person that can shake things up. He's just got that character, the ability to put fire under players' bums and, cause some sort of havoc, good or bad.
No, I had to say that, timing of these firings is absolutely ridiculous. In terms of Sunderland, sacking Martin O'Neill for me is absolutely ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. Look at the time that you're doing it, right? I don't even care that you brought in Paolo Di Canio. It doesn't matter who you would have brought in for me. The time remaining is not enough.
Of course not.
Right? Give Martin O'Neill the summer. Let him go and weed out who he wants to weed out and put together, rebuild a squad. Give him that time.
Yeah.
Right? His time at Leicester, his time at Aston Villa, which is more recent, right? If you want to go by something that, you can go and say, well, I want a more recent reference point. Goes to show you that he can go and build contenders.
Yeah. As long as they're not getting sold from under him.
This is it. This is not a guy that, won't go and do a job for you. Provided that you can keep investing, and so far they have done, and not sell the best players, which is exactly what happened at Aston Villa. Right? He can go and build you a solid team that will give you a few runs in the cup and finish decent positions in the league. So why Sunderland have gone to go and get rid of him, I have no idea. Makes absolutely no sense to me.
No, exactly.
Right? And then you go on to talk about Di Canio's experience as a manager. That's the biggest thing for me. Are you really trying to tell me that Di Canio's the best manager that you could have got? Because if it is, I think that's more worrying than the fact that you sacked Martin O'Neill.
No, good point. No,
and for that, to me, I'm like, unless you're going to go and get somebody who can go and say, yeah, he's got trophy after trophy after trophy recently, and he has a history of building very, very strong teams recently, right? What was the point?
Yeah.
You've gone and got Paolo Di Canio, right? Yeah, he's reasonably good at the time that he was there at Swindon, but that was about it.
Well, I mean,
right? Doesn't have the necessary experience, because right now, let's be honest, Sunderland in a dogfight. Yeah. And gonna be in and around the relegation zone for the rest of the season. This is what's going to happen. Yeah. Does he have the stomach for that? Does he have the experience and the expertise for that? No, not as a manager. Right. The other thing is, he can't go on the field and play. Right. Player, I'd go and say, yeah, he could probably help them. As manager, no. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
not
like
at this level. You
So-
can't get away. You can't get away with just skipping by it, especially when you're in a relegation battle. You got to be able to psych up the boys. You got to be able to, as Gman said, light the fire up the backside. You got to be able to do that. And as much as Di Canio has done that at the lower levels, can he do that at the elite level? We're talking about the elite right here, and I'm not making a Royster 5'9" reference, but it's one of them ones. It's the elite. That's where you are, and that's where you've got to make it. And at the end of the day, I think Di Canio, the highest he should have went is the Championship first before going into the Premier League, because the Premier League's the Lions. Then it truly is. I would expect, within the first 5 games of next season, if stuff ain't going well, Di Canio to get sacked if Sunderland are still in the Premier League. It wouldn't surprise me.
Let's face it, changing the manager at this stage of the season, it's not really going to do much else. Because, I mean, like you said on past shows, Liam, and I quite rightly agree with you, you've still got the same personnel, right? It's not exactly you're going to have time to change anything, are you? Because you've got to stick with those same people who let the manager down. They're the ones who go onto the pitch and they perform. And at the end of the day, it's their responsibility as much as the manager.